Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Moen After Dark. I am, of course, Moen, and I am joined this week, helping me out, my good friend Rock and Rant, the Miami Hurricane. How are you doing today, Rock and Rant?
I'm doing great. Hope everyone had an excellent weekend. I know that I
Yeah,
did. I was fortunate to have some fun stuff with some friends in town. So
it was hot, and there was shitloads of tree pollen here in Ohio. So there was nothing enjoyable about this weekend that I could go and do outside. So I mainly stayed inside in the air conditioning and with the HEPA filter on. So
it's getting
uh,
that time of year, right, for you guys.
It is. It is. We got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, guys. We've got the UNC Board of Trustees meeting, the restraining order preventing them from talking about the athletic budget in private. We've got just broke today, Ross Dellinger. It looks like Thursday is our settlement day for House versus NCAA, and then we've got the Big East commissioner backing off at this last minute and saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, stop the clock." So let's go ahead and say hi to some people, get some questions up here. I want to grab this one right away. This is from Ryan Willie, the friendly badger. 20-piece chicken McNugget right there. Thank you so much, Ryan. Much appreciated.
Winner.
I disagree with Ute's belief that data is everything approach to realignment. Just because a school is in a big market, it doesn't put butts in seats. Do networks really want to put half empty stadiums on TV? That might be a shot at you, Rock and Rant.
It's all good. All they really care about is, are they selling enough advertising and do they have the right audience at the end of the day, right? And whether or not the stage is jam packed in a Michigan Ohio State game or they're drawing in eyes from other sources. The data is going to inform the decision. At some point they might make a call or a projection into the future, and that's understandable too. But I think it's a little bit of everything, and I think that Utes model takes in at least 5 or 6 factors plus the gut, right, comes on top of it.
It does, and Ryan, if you actually go back and watch the North Carolina State video that I did with him, I did discuss with him maybe adding a fan enthusiasm factor in there. Speaking specifically for North Carolina State, uh, ups and downs. North Carolina State historically sells out their stadium. 57,000, I think it's 56,000 was the average for their stadium, and their stadium holds like around 57 at the max. So um, it's difficult to get that metric though to try and figure that into a system, but we're working on it. We're always tweaking that algorithm to try and come up with the biggest and the best ways to do it. We've done it before. We'll keep on working on it. Again, sir, I appreciate that $20 super chat. Much obliged. Keep in mind, we are working on it. Keep watching Wild Ute University, and you'll see how we're doing there. Buckshot Kid says, "Oh, hey, the college football mafia." He's always trying to be the first. Timothy Green, Mowing After Dark. Looks like the Sharks are surrounding the North Carolina Tar Heels. Can't wait for the content on this one. They sure are. Ryan Willie. Dark Moon, good to see you, Dark Moon. RT, good to see RT. Dan Miter. Everyone saw Jaws 1, 2, and 3. Didn't realize they made a fourth with North Carolina in it. Boy, if you sat through Jaws 3, buddy, standing ovation to you. Uh, that's the one where the shark travels from New England all the way down to the Caribbean out of revenge. Have you ever seen that one, Rock and Rant?
I don't know. Is that the one that was like in the most horrific version of 3D you could ever imagine at the time? I
Yes,
can't.
yes, it's when where the
Yes.
shark just kind of floats across the screen through broken glass.
I,
Yeah.
I ironically saw it in 3D, but years later at a bad movie festival where they gave out the glasses, and it was pretty damn bad.
The revenge. Dan Miter with the ACC refusing to settle this conference is going to be blown apart worse than I thought. Shall see. Jan Hulk's all the way here from Slovenia. Good to see you, Jan. Ryan Willie is a fan. I care about matchups. I do too. That's why I think Miami's a good fit in the Big Ten, even though they may have some trouble packing the stadiums. I mean, Penn State, Miami, I think is a natural rivalry. Nebraska, Miami is a natural rivalry.
I really wouldn't be too worried about when big games are going on that would be in the big time slots if a school like Miami or other schools for that matter that might have an issue. USC playing the big games, that stadium, even if it's a middling record for USC that year, those big games are always full. And the same thing happens when a key opponent comes for Miami when they're down. And I'm sure there's a couple of other schools in that sort of reign when those big matchups are in town. Things happen, especially in markets where the other schools' alumni have a lot of people living in that area, right? Especially in South Florida in particular, but also to a degree in California for a school like UCLA or USC.
Yeah, Big Ten alumni, we go everywhere. We're everywhere. You turn over a rock outside in a creek, you'll find a Big Ten alumni. So yeah, I wouldn't be. I'm excited looking at the matchups they've released so far. It looks like they're pretty much jam packed, and I can imagine adding 2 more schools would definitely increase that as well. Jan Hulk wants to agree with Ryan. Me too, Ryan. I want good matchups, but network, they want big TV numbers for as little as they can. They just want the right eyeballs to watch it. Want the right eyeballs. Michelle Weintraub is here. Hey, all. Good to see you, Michelle.
Hello, Michelle.
Jared Jones, a fellow Buckeye. Good evening. Good evening to you, Jared. Go Bucks. Mr. Ed Wayner. Good evening, Moen and RockAndRant. We're gonna shorten your name down. I think we're gonna call you Rock or Rant
or R&R or whatever
R&R. Just there's too many ampersands right there.
I understand.
Illini Ted, hello all. Good to see you, Illini Ted. Great member of our Discord. By the way, if anybody's interested, I've put the Discord address in the description of this video. I can go ahead and put the command in as well. By all means, jump on there. We get into voice chat sometimes. We got so many sections on there to talk about everything from the EA football game to conference realignment to everything in between.
Yeah, Ted was great to share a bunch of content creators from some of the specific teams because we are looking for voices that we can bring on to the shows for Bomber and Moen and you from other schools, either for conference previews or their take on the realignment beyond the people we've had on over the last several months. So, any suggestions for people you're following specifically for your team that you think, especially if you have a connection with them and a communication cycle, we'd love to hear them. And Discord's a great place to share that.
Bob Swanger, good evening, everyone. Expedition Greg, hello, Greg. I think that's another Buckeye. I'm not going to say that. I'll let you say that.
I'll be nice and say go blue, baby. Doesn't hurt me the way it would hurt Moen.
It would kill me. Larry the GM, attendance could be the metric. Hey, that's what I said. North Carolina State, man. They sell out that stadium, good or bad. John Dry, hi y'all. Good to see you, John. Tony Lawson, Jaws 3D is harder to watch than Iowa's offense.
That is a good call. I've tried to block out Jaws 3D, but Iowa's still fresh in my brain. So
I hope our buddy Immaculate's not watching. He might have to take exception with that.
There's hopes for them this year, though, right? There's been some good changes. Hopefully that will.
They've had a new offensive
Iowa fans.
They've got a new quarterback in there, or they had one transfer from Northwestern. We'll see. All right, let's see here. This will kick us off here. Moen, why wouldn't the Big go after UNC as its third most in growth rate? If we don't get UNC, would Big take North Carolina State? That's a big state to not have the Big present. So let's talk about the Board of Trustees meetings before we answer this question. Last Thursday, I believe.
It's popcorn time.
Oh, it's popcorn time. There you go. Wolfpack backpack. We had the Board of Trustees meeting, and in the interim, before that meeting even took place, a lawyer on Twitter, I can't remember the gentleman's name at the moment, filed a restraining order to prevent them from talking about the athletic department and the budgeting behind closed doors. So they had to change it at the last minute and make an announcement that, hey, just to clarify, we're not talking about athletics today, but earlier in the week, one of the trustees had put forth that his number one choice was to leave the conference. So, I mean, we're seeing some dissension in the ranks of UNC. Before they were just being quiet about it. Now they're being a little more vocal. What did you
Yeah.
think about that, Rock and Rant?
Well, that lawyer's name, for anyone who wants to try to look him up and be aware that you'll probably get blocked at 10 seconds after you ask a legitimate question, but his name is David McKenzie. And I think that's the interesting backstory to everything, is that he has been posting on Twitter a lot about all the different legal obligations, the legal things that are going on the lawsuit front from the ACC side, and very much with an ACC point of view. He's had some interesting, intelligent takes along the way, but definitely has been more of kind of crashing down on a Florida State, Clemson, and others parades. So when this whole battle of the board members versus their own, the board of governors, or with internal battles within UNC happened, it was probably the most interesting thing to me was to find out that this guy who has been on Twitter commenting turned out to be the plaintiff and the attorney actually filing it, if I'm not mistaken. So uh, my big takeaway just generally is, wow, North Carolina, are you guys even talking to each other, and are you even aware of the politics in your own state within the whole university system? Because it clearly seems like you're not.
Yeah, it's very much a Game of Thrones, I think, going on there. You're getting, or House of the Dragon might be more accurate. You're having two factions set up here, and they're starting to butt heads publicly. It's not good. But to answer your question, none. I don't see them going after North Carolina State, but that doesn't mean they won't get into North Carolina. There's always that possibility out there. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but there's always a possibility Duke could become a Big Ten team. Good basketball. It's a small private school, but very strong academics. If they were to join the Big Ten Academic Alliance, that would be a huge boost for them, for the BTAA. So it's very possible I could see Duke being the North Carolina representative for the Big Ten.
What is the scenario for you that gets you to a Duke? I'm not doubting it per se, but is it the Big Ten goes beyond what to 24, and then it becomes an easier take? Is it if the UNC system screwed up? Like what are the models in your mind, or just your take on how that happens?
Sure. Okay, so here's how I get there. I've got the SEC. They're going to take UNC. They're going to take the Wolfpack backpack. They got to take NC State with them, but they want UNC bad enough they'll take it. Then they go up and get UVA, and then they'll take Clemson for the brand. They will take Clemson for the brand. I see the Big Ten at that point adding Miami and Florida State, and then they're going to have a conundrum, because at that point, Notre Dame's going to have to make a decision. And if Notre Dame comes in, Notre Dame can dictate who they want to come with them. And they can say something along the lines, give us Stanford, Duke, California. Get all those academic powers in there with us. So we're in an academically superior conference. You'll basically pull all those schools away from the Ivy public library system they use. But I can see it in that they're going to have Notre Dame vouch for them. They're not going to get it on their own merits. I think it's a situation where if Notre Dame finally relented and say, okay, let's go to 24, take a Stanford, take a Cal, take a Duke. Just my opinion. It might not happen. That's, just putting it out there.
I mean, look, the fun of all of this is you can do the great analysis of the data and have a really good idea of where things could go in a scenario, but there have clearly been twists and turns that either delayed what was going to happen or changed what people expected to happen. So it's just more curious to see how everyone's brain thinks around the subject in a world where there's a lot of informed opinions, but there's no guarantees yet.
Right. So, I mean, that's just, hey, look, it could happen that way. Might not happen that way. They might stop at 20 and Notre Dame might say we're going to be independent till the end of time. Never know. Just my opinion. It's something I wouldn't rule out. We're not going to add Duke to the drinking game just yet, Tony. But it's not something I would rule out. Dan Miter, Moen, love your different look on every show. Always wanted to ask you, what is in your legal drink? Oh. This is usually I drink Crown Royal I'm having a mixed drink, I usually have a Manhattan. Manhattan is 2 parts whiskey, 1 part sweet vermouth, and 2 jiggers of bitters. 212, it's area code of Manhattan, easy to remember. Down in Kansas, Moen and RR, do you think Congress is going to be asked for a bailout to pay the judgment in the House court case?
Yikes. A bailout monetarily? No. A bailout in the form of legislation at some point? Possibly. Personally, and there's smarter people than I that think differently, but I personally don't see that happening before the settlement happens and before it starts to get executed versus having to respond to the outcry and problems that come as a result of it that may not appear right away. It's kind of similar to how states did a lot of different things initially from nothing to too little when NIL started to happen, and it took a little period of time for that to happen. But anything is possible. But I can't see anybody bailing out programs with money from the Fed, and definitely I don't see anything this year. But who knows? I could be wrong. They could have already negotiated this, and the lobbyists have already set the stage for something to happen that I don't personally see happening soon, at least, but maybe in the future.
I don't know. It's an election year, and college football is a popular sport. So I wouldn't be shocked to see several senators get on board trying to get this pushed through to in a bipartisan effort to get this pushed through to win some voter appeal.
The only reason why, I mean, not the only reason, but a reason why I'm not sure about that is just if you look at the Big Ten and SEC schools, and the ones that are coming in, I believe the last time I checked is they represent 26 states, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 52 senators whose primary school that everyone loves is used generally the state school in their thing. So if those P2-ish kind of schools or Big 12, if they all are okay with the settlement, and is the first thing they're going to do is try to help the other universities, the Division II, Division III. That's just a question. It's a little bit different when you get down to House representation, but broadly, the P2 alone, I think, is going to have senators from 26 states, which means 52 senators that have those alumni in their ear, if those schools are happy with the outcome. If they're not, then totally different story.
Yeah. That's the other question we got to look at is look at the Senate map for this year, because outside of Ohio, I don't know who's running, in other states, what states are up on the ballot. So. But we did see some pushback from the Big East commissioner tonight. She was not pleased. She is nonplussed with the settlement as it is arranged now. She wants that changed. So the Board of Governors is supposed to meet this Thursday. That was initially, from what Ross Dellinger was saying, was when the vote could take place. So we'll see if anything moves from that point on. And Daniel Gygax brings up a great point. The Big East needs the money from the tournament. Losing any of that cash will hurt. Well, it's going to hurt for everybody. It's just going to hurt them a little more.
Disproportionately. Yeah. I mean, even I feel for the schools that are not, it's painful for everyone, but I certainly feel more for the schools that are not in the P2/P4.
Yeah, I think they'll probably the P2, P4, P5, whatever you want to call it now, will probably end up paying a little bit more in that settlement than they are currently. Tony Lawson says the axe will be gone forever this year. Give me Fickle over Fleck any day. Call me a homer. I don't care. Yeah, you don't have a dog in that hunt, though, do you?
I just want a good game, and I really don't care whether the seats are half empty or full.
They'll be full for that game. They will be full.
I mean, I know they will. To me, I just want to see a good game. I don't, a full stadium with the blowout is pretty useless too.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Florida State, who do you guys really have as regular rivals?
Every once in a while we have Notre Dame. Every once in a while we get Florida in. Florida was the one who canceled the yearly series. It was yearly for a long time. Years ago, when SEC expanded, 30 years ago is when that kind of came to an end as a regular thing. It took a minute or two before the schools basically started setting up a series of home and aways on there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of marginally games against Virginia Tech was a rival, but both programs have been down. If you go back to the last time they were both up, then those are the days when Miami did pretty well from attendance wise. That would be 2017 when they were winning. Like it's that's what it is. It's a winning town. Like when the games are winning, then the worst you'll see is 75% full to 100%. On the other, when it's a bad season in Miami, people are going to go to the beach and going to go do other things, and then you'll see like a lot of tickets sold and half used.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting if they make it to the Big Ten to see some of the rivalries there. I love Big Ten rivalry games. There's nothing like it. Almighty Finn, Dan Miter, why do you think the ACC would blow up even worse if they don't settle? Just asking. Well, that's for Dan, but I can answer that. If they don't settle, it's going to have more and more people coming out of the woodwork, I think.
Yeah, it just is a point of more people will leave depending upon the price. The price can potentially come down, right, as the value goes down, and depending upon what happens with ESPN opting in or out of that deal, right? The price that a Clemson, Florida State might pay may be different than what the sixth school pays because the value of the conference and the timing could change it. Like I don't know that Florida State or Clemson coming to an agreement automatically means that the sixth school is going to pay that same fund in, because the circumstances will have materially changed because they're not all going to go out and reach out for a settlement the day after Florida State and or Clemson do that. Most likely. I mean, anything's possible, but if they were all going to do that right now, then you'd have enough people trying to see whether the North Carolina rules around the incorporation of the entity could dissolve it, right? That would be the only thing that I could see a whole bunch of people going at one time. I just don't see that happening.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think if UNC declared tomorrow, Miami would move?
I'd like to see Miami move the next day. I don't know. I don't think so. For some reason, I think that, and this is not me agreeing with the strategy because it would just, I want it to not go that way just for personal and avoiding trolling reasons kind of thing. But if I can understand the point of view that I don't agree with, that Florida State, because they are in the same state and has that state entity behind them in the sovereignty conversations, has a theoretically easier case that can get more access to more information through the government issue and maybe getting to see the grant of rights and the transparency, that being the fourth bicycle in a Tour de France race and drafting off of everyone can get you to the same place. And, it doesn't matter if you're the fourth. I use this analogy. It doesn't matter if you're the fourth person to get your ticket in the front row, as long as you're not sitting up behind the stage upstairs, right? So I don't think that they will, but I also don't think it's like 2 years later either. I could see it being a little bit further, see a little bit more developments. I would like them to get off their butt and just wave the flag of we want to go and just put more pressure on the ACC. But I don't know. It depends upon my mood that day, what I think they'll do, because I would have hoped they would have done it already, personally.
Right. Tony Washington says Notre Dame isn't getting 3 more schools. TV partners aren't paying for that dead weight. I will let you know this, that when that deal was first struck and we heard the Notre Dame rumors, Notre Dame has the cash is actually listed on what Notre Dame brings into the conference if they're added. And I believe it was at the time that they could bring themselves in and 3 other schools have full freight. So that tells you how valuable that is to the Fox people to try and get Notre Dame on board with that deal.
When that whole came down, or were there any takes from you, Moen, or just broadly of who they might have had earmarked in their mind, with Stanford being one of the obvious ones? Was there who the other 2 were, or was it just like kind of all over the place?
I think they probably would have taken Washington as well. Not that they had a big rivalry with Washington, but, Washington's a tremendous research university. I think they would have loved to have tapped into that. Probably Cal as well, even though they don't have a huge rivalry with them. They do play a couple games, and then probably Oregon would have got a tag along. But I remember at the time that when it came out that Notre Dame would carry the freight for itself and 3 other schools based on the value that was supposedly added in that media deal. So, and again, I'm not saying Duke to the Big Ten. It's not part of the drinking game. It's just I can see a reality. I can see all these multiverses where Duke to the Big Ten actually works. Ryan Willie says, I don't think the Big will take Duke. I want Kansas. Well, some people think Kansas is going to the SEC. I'm not quite there yet. I still think you got to deal with Wolfpack backpack. IDK 13. I think I speak for the majority when I say that we're all tired of the excessive entitlement that Notre Dame gets on top of getting everything while doing nothing in return. I hear you, but they're valuable. Look, I between the two of us, I think we could both say fuck Notre Dame. But
Absolutely.
I mean, it is what it is. They've got value. They've got value.
It may pain us all. Look, Notre Dame's a unifying thing, that I agree with you that everyone would love to see them kind of not have that zone. But you also just got to respect the game. They have built it, whether I like it or not. They've done it, and they're going to get it, and it's unlikely to change in 10 years, even if they had 10 years of mediocrity. It's so ingrained. I just don't see that something that is going to go away in any of the time zones that these decisions are going to come to pass for at least the next evolution.
Jared Jones, Florida State and Miami would be incredible for the Big Ten. That's my two picks right away. Lock down Florida, keep Notre Dame out.
Yeah, I would say most of the Miami fan base, clearly FSU fan base, has turned on SEC for the most part, from just paying attention to the great people that have guested on the show or seeing social. And I would say that most of Miami fan base is on the Big Ten base. I think there'd be more on the SEC side, except for just so much of an assumption that the SEC in Miami is just not going to happen. So I don't know whether that's like the true take versus, hey, we feel like the Big Ten is a possibility and SEC is smaller. But I don't want to speak for every Miami fan, but Miami fans would be excited to go to the Big Ten in general.
Yeah, I think there's better rivalries for them there. Like I said, Nebraska, Penn State. Illini Ted says, RIP Longhorn Network, one of the catalysts of realignment. You're absolutely right, Illini Ted. I spent the better part of today working on that timeline feature for the Pac-16, and that plays a huge part in it, is that Longhorn Network not being a part of it. So that'll probably release. I've still got a few more graphics I want to do for that. That'll probably release this Memorial Day weekend in our members only section. By the way, this is a great time to remind anybody, if you want to watch any of those special videos like Wild Ute University, Timeline, Justin Coos Walker's got his Coos' Corner up there, some Moen rants. We've got new programs and people featured coming down the line here. So by all means, you can become a member of the community, or you can gift a membership for the community. I won't play the video, but I will just punch in member, and that should bring it all up for you.
Yeah, I mean, Texas has just been the spark two different times in one way. They might not have been the fire that USC and UCLA were this last round, but from the Longhorn Network to them in Oklahoma, they are always on the tip of ensuing chaos that happens, and realignments in general, or just how the business is done.
Yeah, it's funny. Notre Dame plays hard to get, and it seems like Texas plays easy to get. Just promise them whatever they want. I wanted to get you. I know you didn't start this one, but I had to. Mary Crocker Rowe, Miami, clowny face.
Inject the hate into my veins. Don't care.
Here's another good one. Almighty Finn, is UNC a rival for Miami in ACC football?
I would moderate rival relative to not having a lot of other rivalries that are massively valuable across the board in the ACC beyond the obvious big schools. Mac Brown has a history with some of the Miami coaches. There have been moments where UNC has been a big trip up, and sometimes both schools are, in a relatively good season. So they're coming into games, maybe not competing for the national title. So in the upper half of rivals, but that said, I don't really know on the football side that most Miami fans care one way or the other about that rivalry. I think beating UNC, you know, when Miami was up and coming in basketball was probably a bigger deal for that, for the obvious reasons.
Mr. Ed Wayner, with the upcoming settlement and P4 schools having to pay out $20 million annually, do you see a push to go to 13 or 14 games for more revenue and start the season 1 to 2 weeks earlier in August? I think eventually week 0 will become week 1. I think that's just going to naturally have to happen with these college football playoff games.
Yeah. The interesting thing will be to see what, you know, if they try to move up everything even another week, potentially, if the ramifications of the NFL playing playoff games on and having games that is on Saturdays against the early rounds of the playoffs, if that just caused like problems for the network, and we'll find out this year what really happens, right? There's some games up there. The NFL is trying to protect their territory, so does that mean they try to move a bunch of things up earlier to, you know, avoid some of that? But it's probably inevitable that there's going to be conflicts no matter how they structure it. But it'll be interesting to see.
Illini Ted, if UNC leaves, all teams that have a potential landing spot should be making calls immediately. I think everybody's already making calls.
Yeah, making calls or having the sidebar conversations, I think is, you know, is just different than announcing a lawsuit, right? They're two different kind of situations that will play out in their own different ways.
Antoine Coates is in the house. Good to see you, Antoine. I'm sure it's a long shot, but I believe Miami would be a better fit in the Big 12.
I would love your take and another comment on why you, and specifically why you think it's a better fit for Miami. Not disputing, I'm just curious as to how you're seeing it, Antoine.
Dan Miter says stubborn. If they lose their 2 biggest brands, they lose 35% of their media value. He's talking about the ACC. Ryan Willie says not Cal. Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you. So basically the ACC is being very naive then. Illini Ted says Notre Dame lost their best window of being able to dictate their terms. They will still have it to an extent because they can leverage the P2 against each other, but not how they could have last year. Unfortunately for the Big Ten, I think they're still going to be able to dictate terms.
Yeah, I mean, because you what are your other ramifications? You know, your other options, right? Are, you know, let them go theoretically to the SEC. Not that I think anyone wants to do that. Like, you're trying to play defense, and you may be in a bidding war, even if you think the odds that Notre Dame would go to the SEC are small. Or anytime someone has a theoretical leverage over you, makes it harder. So they're going to have that window to dictate things. Maybe not to the same degree that they did that last round, but they'll have certainly a big opinion on it.
Clay Johansson, good to see you, Clay, says, if I remember right, Notre Dame add to the Big Ten, it adds $225 million a year. I don't believe the figure was ever released. I just heard that it would carry the freight for itself and 3 other schools. I don't know if that's freight at full share, partial share for the other schools or what, but I'll have to look into that after the show. I might be wrong. Dan Miter says all this FSU, Clemson, Miami value is shown on Wild Ute University. Yeah, we pinned it to the homepage. If you guys want to, if you're on the homepage of our channel and just look at the pinned video at the top, Ute did a fantastic presentation on where all that value lies within the ACC and what number they need to hit.
Yeah, with a good season, you know, you can make an argument that Miami's value is relatively audience-wise is at its lowest. It's like been locked into a floor for a long time now. So, but the 3 of those schools alone are approaching 50%. You add North Carolina, and you're getting into another level where just it's an impossible situation for the ACC.
Tony Washington, RockAndRant, what is Miami fans and grads' opinions of Donna Shillelagh's presidency?
Oof. Well, again, knowing the Miami fan base, the last thing I want to do is speak for everyone. And it's always hard as well when it comes to things where political stuff can come into people's point of view. I would say that it was not the best time, whether it was through neglect or just bad decisions for the athletic program. In a lot of ways, some bad hires beget bad outcomes. Maybe things weren't invested, things were on the cheap. That said, the university health system that Miami acquired, with a lot of problems that ensued as well. There was a lot of financial problems there for a minute with absorbing all of that Donna did lead, is now helping greatly in terms of spinning off money to the university and people recognizing that they built this whole medical system around the U logo brand, which is actually developed by the athletic department years ago. So the long run, it may wind up being looked upon more favorably, but you can't really dismiss, again, whether through neglect or just bad decisions, the impact of what her reign was on the program.
Yeah,
and some
I think
people outright hate her as a result.
Yeah, I think the most iconic shot is going to be from the U part 2, where she's standing there with the check in the bowling alley from Nevin Shapiro.
Yeah, for sure. But there, and I can't guarantee this, but people I know who have a position to know, she also does have really strong connections to the Big Ten from her time in Wisconsin, right? And
Yeah.
There've been more than one person who's alluded to that. She's somebody who's can be a conduit and advocate for the conversations that we're talking about here. Time will tell on that. I'm sure it will all come out in the movie.
Clay Johansson wants to know, where's Immaculate? Immaculate's doing his own thing now. You can follow him on Twitter at Immaculate View. He's in the chat right now too. I see him now. Hey, Immaculate. Spoke to him today. He's busy with the House versus NCAA stuff. He's been tweeting like a madman. So definitely, if you're on Twitter /X, follow Immaculate.
Especially on Thursday. Especially Thursday. Immaculate's the person I'm going to be monitoring all day. Not that I don't pay attention to everything he's posting about, because he's got both great and unique takes and has taught me a lot about a lot of this stuff as well, just by listening. So, but Thursday in particular, man, should be an interesting day that could be game changing for everyone.
Yeah, I think Immaculate might need a new keyboard after Thursday. Illini Ted, that early and mid-August heat and humidity will be brutal if they start the season weeks earlier. It is already bad enough in late August and early September. Crimea
River, welcome to Miami. Get used to it.
I was going to say, I don't think it's any better in mid-August to early September. I don't think there's a difference in Ohio. It's hot and sticky.
I'm not sure what your weather's been like recently, but I can't remember September's getting marginally better in the beginning weeks of the last couple of years. But yeah, for sure. I mean, if you move the season up, you're definitely going to get into even more peak of the peak. But it's just more about what happens to the ratings of these games, right? Ultimately, they have to decide to do something, and the NFL is not going to be the one that budgets. They're the golden goose. This is all second to that. It might be clear second, but it's going to be second to the NFL's desires with the networks if it doesn't work out for the ratings on the playoff games in those first round.
Arningrad says Notre Dame does not want the Big Ten. They do not want to have to play Ohio State every year. But good news is they won't have to play Ohio State every year. That won't be one of their permanent rivalries. I'd imagine if they join the Big Ten and they get Stanford in, they would probably have a rival permanently with Stanford, Michigan, and Purdue.
I would love to play Ohio State every year. I mean, I don't know. I've always liked having the big games as much as possible, regardless of where it happens. Some fans have different takes. They want their big opponents to have a terrible record heading into their big game. Like, I always love the draw of two top tier, massive rivals, top rank going against each other for something that matters, and the name brand, that the halo effect of that. But I don't doubt that Notre Dame doesn't want to play Ohio State every year.
Yeah, as far as Ohio State goes, I only really want to maintain two rivalries, and that's Michigan and that's Illinois. And they took Illinois away from us. I firmly believe in the Illybuck Trophy. And I firmly believe that Brett Bielema is not going to coach Illinois to score 52 points to win the Illybuck. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Bert can't do it. Ryan Willie is an evil badger. I don't like Donna S. Ended the baseball program at Wisconsin. There you go.
You know, that's actually one of those schools that could bet, you know, that's actually what I meant to say is that's one of those sports that actually could potentially benefit from some of the changes that are coming in terms of scholarship limits. I don't know whether that would specifically impact what did or didn't happen with Wisconsin back in the day, but you know, if the schools are able to do their own scholarship levels that they want for programs, as opposed to like baseball, I think has like an 11.7 scholarship maximum, it's going to impact a lot of schools that do try to go into you know, really be competitive in baseball going forward. Whether that means other schools bring the program back is a totally different conversation.
Yeah, you might say she murdered that baseball program at Wisconsin. Thank you so much for the super chat, Ryan. It is much appreciated. We'll keep in mind that Wisconsin will be a firm no if Donna S. comes looking for a handshake. Tony Lawson says Stanford drink. By God, Tony, I've got a liver that's got a limited lifespan on it. We can't drink to every school that I'd say might join the Big Ten. We did that.
But Tony, you could
dead.
just suggest what those drinks would be. Is it some you know, what is the Stanford drink if we were to take it on? I'm sure it's not something that would be in Moen's
I would
normal
have to set up
drink library.
We'll get a cocktail bar set up right here. I'll move my bar into this office so I could mix drinks as needed. Florida man. Good to see you, Florida man. I've heard a lot about you. Who would be FSU's rival in the Big Ten? Oh, that's a good question.
Well, if Miami goes, obviously that is one of them. But you know, they've had some great games historically with Nebraska. There's a few other schools, and in some schools, just the brand names alone, the minute that they become repeat rivals either every year, depending upon how the Big Ten were to structure, who's the permanent rivals, if any, if it's always rotating. But you can just imagine that even schools they've only played once or twice can quickly become big rivals just because the game is going to mean so much, especially if it's the difference in whether you're going to make it to either the Big Ten title game or if you're on the edge of qualifying for the playoffs if you have a couple of losses in the bag.
Yeah, I would say Penn State would be my number one rivalry for Florida State, assuming they take the Miami. They're +1. Just makes sense. They were two of the last independents to join a conference. Bobby Bowden joined the ACC. Joe Paterno joined the Big Ten, and Lou Holtz kept them from joining the Big Ten. Illini Ted says, Bert, the offensive juggernaut is happening. EA Sports has spoken. For those uninitiated, Brett Bielema's real name, we call him Bert in the Big Ten. And I don't know why we call him Bert, but we do. Tony Lawson, Florida State, maybe Penn State and or Illinois could be rivals. Okay, I get Penn. Oh, okay. Illinois, the Fighting Illini versus the Seminoles. Okay, it makes sense. Although they don't actually keep that Illini mascot anymore. It's still their name, but they don't allow it to be a mascot. Jose agrees. Penn State, Miami. There you go. FSU and Illinois have like-minded mascots. You're right, Tony, but I don't think that Illinois has a mascot anymore, or they've changed it to something else, because I think we had this discussion once before. They were going to change it to an otter for alma mater. It was going to be alma otter, and because I think they made them change the actual Native American mascot.
Illinois should have hired Florida State as consultants on how to navigate the logo issues, because obviously Florida State has a really great relationship and has managed to avoid all of that because of their true relationship with the Seminole tribe.
Yeah. And there's probably because there's still a significant amount of the Seminole tribe left, and I don't know that there's a significant amount of the Illini left. In Illini, Ted, we have no mascot. The students want one, but the big donors won't allow it. So there you go. Yeah, Illini, Ted. There are no Illiniwek tribe left to negotiate with. So There you go. There you go. It's sad but true. All right, guys, we're about 45 minutes into the show here. We're going to do about another 15 minutes. If you guys want to send in some more questions and comments, and then we will let you get on with your busy Sunday nights. Enjoy it if you can. If you've got decent weather and it's not raining cottonwood seed all over you, like it is here. Daniel Gygax, Chief Illinois, was retired in 2007. There you go. 2007.
Maybe he went down to Florida and prepped for the Big Ten move into the state.
Maybe. A lot of Big Ten people retired in Florida. Maybe that's where he's at. Immaculate, got to run. Just stopped in to say hello. Have a good night. Good to see you, Immaculate. Thanks for stopping by.
Be good, Immaculate.
Yep. Scrap and Wolf, Florida State has played Michigan too. But Michigan has Ohio State, Michigan State. If Notre Dame joins, they're going to have to take that Notre Dame rivalry. I don't think you can protect more than 3 rivalries.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Notre Dame came in, depending upon who's already in or who comes with them. You know, they, with the history there, what would be their 3 protected in that kind of scenario? You know, assuming if Florida State is in and Miami's in, plus all the existing members, who would Notre Dame's 3 protected be in that theoretical scheduling model?
I like this. Illini Ted, mascots the students have proposed: the otters for alma mater, and kingfishers, a blue and orange bird native to the state. I like otters, so for me it would be the otters.
Otters would be better. I don't know, either are great, but otters versus the beavers, and I know that they're probably not that close really from an animal kingdom state, but maybe they are. I don't know. Otters versus the badgers versus the beavers.
Well, then you've got the badgers, the golden gophers. You would have the wolverines, and you would have the otters, and all out rodent versus weasel brawl. So, Tony Lawson, Miami and Washington should play every year. The Air Miles Trophy.
I've done that trip before to see a game. It didn't work out too well going to Washington, but I certainly enjoyed the return visit.
Marcus Williams, Notre Dame rivals, Michigan. Oh, I forgot about USC entirely. You're right. USC and Stanford. But boy, they've got a rivalry with Purdue that goes back further than the Stanford rivalry.
And then you have to talk about what are the TV, you know, how much, if that scenario comes out, when you have all these great matchups, like what are the ones that the networks are going to want to make sure happen more often in general, right? Like you can see them wishing for Notre Dame versus Florida State, the Miami Notre Dame. If Miami were to get in, that rivalry
Miami
is a massive TV draw when it does happen, just because of the historic vitriol.
Yeah, great point, Marcus. I mean, Notre Dame might have to have 6 protected rivals, but it's all said and done if they're in the Big Ten with Stanford. Jared Jones says, would they actually want USC having 3 protected rivals in the Big Ten? I see USC, and that's it. They let Iowa do it. Nunn says, as a Michigan fan, it'd be great to get rid of the Spartans. Moen, what is your timeline on this whole ACC mess, or will Discovery speed this up? I don't think Discovery will speed this up. I think that if the Attorney General and Florida State gets their wish and they get that contract with ESPN, and that's about to become part of the Sunshine Law in Florida, I think the ACC and I think ESPN is going to weigh heavily on the ACC to wrap that settlement up. So
yeah, unless we're all wrong about how much ESPN really cares about keeping that trade secret, right? The Attorney General thing is the one that can move has the potential to move the fastest because it's its own separate thing with power broker and on a home field advantage representing the state. And if there's ever going to be a pressure point for the ESPN crew to be forcing the ACC to figure something out, you would think it's the moment before, because the moment after, it's already out there. So, and if they don't do anything, it also makes you wonder whether they really were that freaked out about it versus trying to defend the turf out of principle, and less about fear. I think it's they're freaked out about it, but if they don't pressure the ACC and it comes out, then that entire thing is removed from the calculation.
Almighty Finn says Nebraska, Penn State, and Miami will be the FSU Big Ten rival. I think we talked about that. Clay Johansson, Notre Dame has Purdue and MSU too. That's what I'm talking about. They're going to have 6 protected rivals in the Big Ten. They ain't got to worry about playing Ohio State every year. They're going to be lucky to play them every 5 years. Moen, you know FSU is my number one, but in my family, I grew up as a Buckeye fan. Well, you're all right then. You're okay. You come from good stock. What are the odds of Rice being number 24 that would make a solid doormat in a 10 or 11 conference schedule? Academically, they are top 20 in the nation. You're absolutely right, but they don't bring any brand value. At least Duke gives you a basketball program. I can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted, RockAndRant.
Sorry about that. I wanted to prevent all the dog fun of barking. I don't know if Immaculate has specifically talked about Rice, but that seems like one of those schools that if the private university, competitive above Ivy League kind of thing comes together, that seems like a place that kind of school would go. I can't even imagine the dominoes that would have to fall in a specific way for Rice to get into the top 24 of getting into the Big Ten. But I mean, stranger things have happened, but I can't figure that one out. Academics aside, and no disrespect to the school, I just don't see how that works.
Yeah, I get his inference. I got you. I got what you were laying down there, Jose. But Notre Dame USC would be protected rivals for sure. Like I said, yeah, they're going to have 6 protected rivalries. Florida man, Florida State has played Ohio State too in the past. Yes, they did. They kicked the shit out of us. John Cooper was the coach. Marcus Williams, I hate Ohio State for different reasons than I hate Michigan State. Now see, look at this. He calls us Ohio State, and then he calls us Ohio. Ohio is a university in Athens, dude. Where Ohio State is actually good, whereas Michigan State is just annoying. Well, Michigan State's annoying, and they'll beat the shit out of you too in the locker room on the way up the ramp.
Yeah, I always think that when you lose those big in-state rivals, even if one's a much bigger brother in this case historically, then it's sad that those kind of things go. Not that it's expected to go, but I think you got to keep that game on, even if they're the annoying little brother to you.
Tony Lawson says Rice drink. We'll do sake for Rice. If anybody brings up Rice, I'll get a bottle of sake.
I mean, we have the North Carolina State backpack from you. Like Tony's going to create like the 8-pack of various schools and drinks.
He's gonna have like a board,
days.
one of those, like a draft board. Where it's gonna have all these little different types of draft alcohol for each school. Conundrum, good to see you, Conundrum, an Iowa guy. Notre Dame, Penn State, and Michigan are all border schools with Ohio State. Lock it up. And then Kyle Visser with a very cool comment. Kyle, why is it called After Dark when it's still light out? When I started the show, it was dark out in Ohio. It actually was. And this was actually supposed to be at like 10 p.m. to 12 midnight, but, I've got to do things like sleep and work for a living.
You do have sunglasses on, so it is dark to you.
That's right. I wear my sunglasses at night. I wrote this song and some jerk stole it from me. Florida man says Miami is Florida State's oldest rivalry.
And at least Miami and Florida State play each other every year, unlike Florida. The Florida State and Florida mandated by the state to play. So that would, almost every scenario continue regardless of what conference they go to. Yeah,
that's gonna be interesting. They're gonna have a tough. I mean, there's not really any small schools in Florida that they could really schedule for a small in-state opponent. I mean, you're only
Yeah, just
if you go to 10
FAU and
conference,
FIU.
yeah, if you go to 10 conference games in the Big Ten, that's going to leave Florida as one of your out-of-conference games. You're going to have one left to schedule there. So,
I think a lot of Miami and other schools have played like Florida A&M and Bethune, like some other Division I AA, depending upon whether that changes. I mean, there are 4 or 5 options to do a smaller in-state school to do a home game in that schedule, but whether or not they want to go down that road versus expand recruiting footprint and play somebody from another state.
Dan Miter wanted to thank you for the membership, and he will pass it on.
You're welcome.
Daniel Gygax with a great comment. Ohio University is one of the top party schools. It absolutely is. The Halloween party used to get so out of hand they had to call in the National Guard. They don't let us have parties like that down there anymore. Moen, LOL on the sad MSU tunnel attacks. Yeah. Ryan Willie says Tony will have a fully stocked bar. Yeah, he will at this point, at this rate.
I'm convinced he already has it.
Probably does. He lives in Minnesota. I can't think of anything to do there but drink and fish. So, Timothy Green, I would just like to say that you two are some of the very best in the business that I have ever seen on YouTube. Thank you for what you do for the fans like us. You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
I will defer that to Mr. Moen because
we'll give you the crowd cheer. Michigan is Coca-Cola, Ohio State is Pepsi, and Michigan State is RC Cola. Well, I think Pepsi outsells Coca-Cola in America, so I'll take it. Corey Hart. No, that was my song. He stole it. Tony Lawson says Florida A&M has a cool logo.
And one of the best bands you've ever seen.
Yeah, I've never seen them before.
Florida A&M's marching band is insane. Like that will be one of those schools that when Miami play, they schedule them for a lot of reasons, but having the band come is pretty tremendous, and no disrespect to an Ohio State band, it's just a different thing as well. They both have their own unique style that is pretty tremendous, even for somebody who doesn't really pay attention to marching bands generally.
I like this. Marcus Williams, man, that cold. And you know what's funny? RC Cola used to be good in the 70s. You ever had RC Cola RockAndRant?
Absolutely. I actually, every once in a while, find it and get it just for the nostalgia trip of it. For me, it just feels like it has an extra sugar kick even beyond the others at this point. And a cool logo.
Yeah, the logo is cool. The logo is cool, but they used to make a drink called a sidecar that was an RC. You would cut RC Cola with Crown Royal whiskey, and they would call it an RC sidecar. But when we were kids growing up, whenever our parents bought RC Cola, we called it Rotten Crotch Cola because we thought it tasted like a rotten crotch. $2 super chat from Marcus Williams. Michigan equals Coca-Cola, OSU Pepsi, and Michigan State RC Cola. Well, there you go. I will give you the LOL. We'll check out this year, though. I think Ohio State might be Jolt Cola. Oh, look at this. Conundrum says Tony lives in Iowa because he loves it. I thought he lived in Minnesota. Apparently, he lives in Iowa. Sometime this summer, we need a Moen party. A GT drink would be the Three Wise Men. I don't know what that drink is. You know what the Three Wise Men is?
I do not. It sounds like something you have to go into deep detail on like a group Discord and make sure that everybody's mixing their drinks proportionately correct.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Is that true about Miami? FSU, Florida have played since 1958.
I don't know myself offhand. I'd have to Google that. But I know that Miami, if I'm not mistaken, played Florida State before Florida ever did.
Okay. Conundrum wants to say RC Cola equals caramel. I always remembered it was straw. I always remembered the belches it gave you would just give you some awful belches. So it always tasted better going down than coming back up. Like I said, if Rice joined the Ivy, we could get the iconic brown rice matchup. True. Brown rice.
I mean, no matter who's in your league, eventually somebody is going to become a doormat that was not a doormat before, unless everyone's going to be mediocre except for a few. Like maybe that's what happens instead of having schools go 0-10 or 1-9 in conference. You just get a bunch of schools that go 3-7, 4-6, 5-5, who were not used to doing that on the regular.
So Tony Washington says, I live in Twin Cities, never believed there's Hawkeyes. So he does live in Minnesota, so all he does is drink and fish. New conference affiliation rule. If Clemson joins the SEC, some school has to change their mascot. Yeah, that's true. That would be 3 tigers in there. Right? That'd be Clemson.
Oh, yeah.
Auburn, LSU.
LSU. Yeah, everybody was probably hanging out at the same club that day 100 years ago.
Illini Ted says the 3 wise men kicked my butt on my 21st birthday, and then Dan Miter sums it up. It's Johnny Walker, Jack Daniels, Jim Beam. Who? In one shot?
At least there was no gin in there.
Oh, God. I'll stick with the Crown Royal. Thank you so much. How does the Georgia Tech cocktail not have Coca-Cola in it? He's got a great point. Coca-Cola right there in Atlanta. Got to put Coke in it, guys. So,
yeah, you would think. The
maybe the Georgia Tech, maybe Georgia Tech. Since you guys want to kill my liver, we'll make it Bacardi 151 and Coca-Cola.
That seems like a good combination and appropriate.
Moth Prof says 4 Tigers.
Oh, Missouri.
Mizzou. Yeah, Missouri. I always forget Missouri's in the SEC.
Just means more Tigers, apparently.
Jared Jones clarifies it's Jim, Jack, and Johnny Walker. I substitute Johnny for Jose. Jesus. I thought my drinking was bad. You guys are out of control. Maybe you ought to come down here with me. We'll go visit Ohio University sometime.
I'm surprised you just didn't add Jose as opposed to substituting it.
Conundrum, Long Island iced tea, call a cab. Oh, yeah. My lady, she loves them Long Island iced teas, and it only takes about 2 of them before she's absolutely wrecked and I'm carrying her. So
I remember my first 1 or 2 of those growing up on Long Island, so not knowing that it wasn't what it was.
Ooh, yeah. I've had just a sip of them once or twice. I don't taste any liquor in them. That's a problem. So, all right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up here. We've had a good show. We've been on for over an hour here. I want to thank RockAndRant for helping me out this week. Hopefully he'll be back next week.
Welcome.
And we'll go from there. But let's see here. I want to get this last one in for Moth Prof. Easy fix. LSU should be the Bayou Bengals. Auburn should be the War Eagles. Do I get billable hours for this?
You should.
You get a laugh track for it, brother. You get a laugh track. Oh, you know what? I haven't done this yet. Hold on. I will take you guys out with this. The best drop.
Oh.
With that, I bid you all an adieu. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for everybody who donated to the Super Chats. Ryan Willie, Marcus Williams. Thanks to everybody who became a member. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, guys. We will see you next Sunday. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., Big West Mafia show. Tuesday at 8 p.m., Big 12 Mafia show. So definitely make sure you're tuned into the College Football Mafia Network to catch those shows as well. And we will see you guys next Sunday. Peace out.
Have a great night.